Hello everyone and welcome to my channel in these encounters with beautiful and inspiring minds. Please think of liking and subscribing so that you too can become part of this process of spreading ideas and truths that could bring more meaning, more beauty, and more stability to our lives. And if you are interested in spreading your message out there, please write me and let's create this network of meaningful conversations. Now we're going through these challenging times. The world out there seems to change extremely fast, and this can leave some of us, or many of us, a little bit confused, overwhelmed, or left behind, or disoriented. And I think it is good to remember that the world is made of layers or of different frequencies, and that we can connect to while remaining anchored in the reality as we see it. We can always find a community, a discipline, a path that can give us the support that we need right now and stay connected with what is real and what is truthful. And it is in this sense that I invited today Elvi Orr, a rebirther or a rebirthing breathworker. Welcome, Elvi, and thank you so much for accepting my invitation.
Hi, Susanna. It's really a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
I know. I'm so happy and thrilled to have you here, Elvi. And as I was telling you a little bit earlier, I feel a little bit emotional, and our viewers will understand soon why. Well, Elvi was born in Estonia. She was married to the extraordinary Leonard Orr for 11 years prior to his passing last year in September. She worked as a French teacher before she met Leonard in 2008, started traveling with him, learning about rebirthing breathwork and other healing tools. Elvi now lives in Nashville, North Carolina, and after 1 year of dealing with the loss, the grief, and working on herself, she comes back to continue Leonard's rebirth work. And we're going to find out more about that. And I want to mention quickly before we get into that, that I was a student of Leonard. I met him a couple of times back in 2008. And then in 2009, the year when I moved to France, actually was my last trip on the North American continent in February 2009 before I moved here. And so I did a 5-day retreat in Virginia doing conscious breathing, sitting by the fire, taking the baths. But I don't want to say too much because I want you to discover directly from Elvi. And it is through Leonard that I have learned about Babaji, as I was telling you before, and I had quite a few magical experiences and interesting dreams of him. And this is the book that actually made me learn about Leonard and his work, Breaking the Death Habit, the Science of Everlasting Life. It was offered to me as a gift by one of my clients back then in Montreal, as he could not pay for his treatment. Okay, so this makes it even more magical because basically this knowledge came to me. I didn't look for it. So I feel blessed and honored to have this interview with you and share this beautiful path that our dear Leonard opened, which is called rebirthing. So Elvi, I would like you to tell us a little bit about rebirthing and its history, how it came about, when it came about, and what is it all about. But before getting into that, I would like to ask you, how are you feeling?
As you mentioned, it has been a challenging year. This is now we're in October, and just a month ago, I completed my year of bereavement and healing and just processing all of the big changes that had happened in my life in the past few years. And so it was my first time that I was so close, in such close contact with grief and in such an immediate way. And how do you even prepare for losing your husband, obviously? And, you know, he's the reason that I'm in the US. He's the reason that I'm doing what I'm doing. And so it was a lot, but I recognize very clearly that grief is a universal human experience. And anytime that I go through something that is a universal human experience, or that many other people have experienced or will, I find that I am more capable as a facilitator, as someone in the therapeutic field, someone in the healing field. And so even though it's difficult, I find that I will be able to understand people better, and ultimately it makes me a better person, a better guide. So I would say that the main purpose that I had over the course of the year was not to repress and to do my best to feel and whatever there was to feel, and to release layer by layer by layer by layer the loss and the grief and the all the material that was surfacing for me. And the purifications that we are going to talk about largely very much helped me with that. And so Leonard actually helped me get through this, as well as it helped me that I was able to connect to his consciousness and his spirit, and I was able to receive messages from him, and that's very comforting. So anyway, to answer your question, I'm doing really well. I'm very inspired to continue his work. I love working with my clients. I find it very meaningful. I love breathing myself. I find that it's such an easy way to bless out, and it's a very easy way to access what I didn't even know was here, what's underneath. It can surprise me.
Elvi, what do we want to access through this breathing?
Well, sometimes I access painful emotions that I wasn't aware were there. Sometimes I access insights, or like, for example, 3 weeks ago, we had a 9-day rebirthing training over Zoom. And the first session that I received, so when I was breathing myself with a student observing me, Leonard came into my session, and I felt like he put his hand on my back, and his vibrational hand on my back, and I could really feel the energy. And at first, actually, I felt like a stream of sort of a rainbow light coming onto me. And it was so overwhelming, and I was crying, and it was almost like it was firm but gentle, that touch of the hand, and as if he was communicating to me that whatever remnants of grief were there after this 1 year of processing, it was okay to let go of that, and that he was there to help me. And now the whole group of the training was there to help me as well. And I was just overwhelmed, completely overwhelmed. I mean, in a very elated way, but it's so profound. And so that's what I'm accessing.
Can you please talk to us, for those who are watching now and have no clue what this rebirthing is and who Leonard Orr is? Can you please give us a brief history of this? How would you call it? A discipline, a path? What is it, rebirthing?
Yes. So I would call it an alternative healing method. Okay. You can also call it, actually it has many names. You can call it therapeutic breathing. You can call it conscious energy breathing. You can call it, the official name is Rebirthing Breathwork, or you can call it circular breathing. And so there are many, many breathing schools in the West now, and breathing is very popular, which I'm very glad about. So Leonard's school is the original Western conscious breathing school. He started it, he perfected it in 1974, according to his own writings. And by 1960s, Leonard was already very involved with exploring metaphysics, and he was participating as well as facilitating seminars about self-improvement, emotional healing. So he was very much in the alternative healing field. And so some of you will know this, and some of you may not know this, that Leonard was an unwanted child. He had a very painful relationship with his mother. He never actually felt love from his mother, and he had a very difficult birth. He had the cord around his neck, and he was pulled out with forceps. And so it is my hypothesis that we probably wouldn't even have rebirthing if he had had a very easy birth and a very easy childhood. So there was something about that had to play a role as a catalyst for him to even develop such a method. So somewhere in the 60s, he was taking a bath one day. So that's the story he tells, right? So he was taking a warm, comfortable bath one day to relax, and he stayed there a long time. And he stayed there kind of longer than he probably should have. And all of a sudden, he started to experience a regression in the form of birth memories, or sort of like memories that were from a different time in his life that were very much on the subconscious level that he had never experienced before. So that was very unique. And then he went back to facilitate a self-improvement seminar, and he told the other people about that, because obviously they were exploring their inner world and their inner lives. And those people said, well, we want to have birth memories. How can we have birth memories? And Leonard said, well, you go home and you get into a warm, comfortable bathtub, and then you stay there and you stay there and you keep the water warm and you don't come out. Even if you feel like coming out, just stay there. So you work through the resistance patterns. So you just stay there, even if you feel like you should get out, and then see what happens. And some of them, not all of them, but some of them came back and had experiences. And they said, our families already think we are weird. We have nobody to share this with. And I really wish that you had been there with me when I was having this experience. And that's basically when Leonard was invited to observe somebody else take a bath and be there as a container, as an energetic container. And we know that very, very well, that if you have somebody with you who is a safe space, emotionally and energetically and psychologically, you can go so much deeper inside of yourself to find out what's really there, because you have a support system.
For sure.
So rebirthing is all about emotional safety. This really shouldn't be overstated. The absolute foundation of rebirthing is emotional safety and trust in the facilitator.
Sorry, so it started with this bath, and how come the other elements were added, and when, if you want to give us?
Sure, yeah. Well, actually, first let me tell you how it came out of the bathtub then, because so it started in the bath, and then Leonard recognized, so originally the rebirthing process was in a hot tub with the person breathing, being supported by two facilitators who were just keeping the body steady and being the support system emotionally, psychologically, and comforting the person. But and those were very strong experiences, because warm water imitates the womb. And if you have a warm body next to you, supporting you, that imitates the mother. And so water acts as a catalyst to create a more intense experience. And Leonard started noticing that there was a breathing pattern that was accompanying their process in the tub. And then he thought, well, I wonder if I could take the person out of the bathtub and just have them do the breathing. And that's when the dry rebirthing, which is now what we practice mostly, was born. And so just to let people know that right now, because breathing in the water is more intense for people, we actually start with dry sessions. And so the person should have, it's recommended that they have at least 10 dry sessions before they move into a wet rebirth.
Sessions for people that do not know at all about your practice?
Yes, so it means breathing out of the water. So if I'm the facilitator and I have a client, first what we do is we just sit down and I ask if there's anything happening in their life that is very activating for them, how they are doing. So we're connecting as person to person, heart to heart. We're creating trust with each other and the emotional safe container. And then they lie down in a comfortable position. Often they have a blanket on them because it's more comforting. I like to give them a bath towel that's rolled up to support their neck. And then I guide them into a circular breathing rhythm, into a connected circular breathing rhythm where there are no pauses between the inhales and the exhales. The inhale merges with the exhale. The exhale merges with the inhale. And that is the connected, conscious breathing. And the reason why the name, connected, conscious breathing, and the reason why the name rebirthing is connected to this work, obviously, is because originally it regressed people back to their birth memories.
I see.
And yes, and I think that it's actually a very good name, because we are kind of giving ourselves birth all the time because we're always renewing and growing.
Yeah. So if you were to describe in few words, to give a definition of this rebirth work, what would that be? What are the elements that are characteristic to this particular practice?
Yes. So it is breathing energy as well as air. That is one of Leonard's definitions. It is a way to release emotional blockages. It is a way to very quickly release stress and to relax very deeply. Mm-hmm. What I love most about rebirthing is that it really, the way I like to express it, it hits all of the different levels that we are composed of. So it's certainly, it accesses the emotional mind. You know, for example, when the session that I described, the emotions that surfaced during that session 3 weeks ago, I honestly didn't know they were there, or at least they weren't active. And as soon as I started breathing in a connected way, without pauses between inhales and exhales, it just connected me to this pain, and up it came, and it was able to release, and I just felt so much lighter, so much better. And so again, it helps us access the emotional mind, the psychological part of us, the mind itself. Sometimes we get incredible insights because we move into a very relaxed state, and in fact an altered state, where our consciousness expands and our perspective expands a lot. So that's the incredible thing, is that the breathing is the vehicle to move us into that very relaxed state and then into that altered state, from where we can have access to those different levels of ourselves. So then there's also the energetic level. So it's very cleansing energetically. Yes. And most people feel that and say, oh, I feel just so clear. Many people say at the end of the session, I feel so clear and so cleansed. And it is like a cleanse.
Yes.
And it's one of the elements. It's the air element.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but you mentioned to me when we had the chat the other day that he has this formula. That what's Leonard's formula when it comes to rebirthing, and how is it different from other schools of rebirthing? That's what I would like.
Yes. Yeah, that's really important for me to clarify, because I think someone who just goes online and puts in something like conscious breathing or breathing therapy or breathing practice, and they don't know anything, there will be many, many, many options for them to access and to participate in. So something that's very important that we don't do is that we only work individually. So there's one facilitator per client. And it's because Leonard believed that every single individual deserved the full attention the whole time by one trained professional. So we don't do any group breath work.
I see.
And it's because of that. And I'm not saying that group breathwork doesn't have its merits. It certainly does. And many people are introduced through the group breathwork.
But why is it that you wouldn't like to have rebirthing done in a group, apart from, wanting to have the full attention to the other person? Is there any other reason for that?
Yeah, well, because we open our chakras when we start the breathing process, especially if you have a lot of people in the physical space. If everybody's chakras are open, everybody's having very different experiences. And say somebody's going through a very, very tender process, and they really need a lot of gentleness and a lot of quiet and silence. And maybe another person's laughing, and then another person is crying, and another person is having a lot of maybe movement. And so it's like a soup, and it just feels too confusing, because our energy systems pick up on other people's energies, and it's just not what Leonard was interested in. He was interested in peace and healing rather than a strong experience or a very stimulating experience. So it was just about the goal that he had. He wanted, and actually, I think it's really important to mention also that many people didn't feel like they really experienced that they received the full attention of their parents and that really high quality presence of their parents when they were growing up. And so it's a healing element to make that part of the rebirthing process. Say I'm for 2 hours with somebody, and they are my object of attention for 2 hours. And so that itself is so healing for people. And it can, in a way, heal parts of themselves that were hurt or neglect, or they felt neglected because they never really had that really high quality attention because their parents were not able to provide that.
Yeah. Could you please tell me more about the spiritual aspect of this work, or the subtle aspects of this experience? Because from what I understand, it's a healing process. The purpose of this practice is to cleanse, is to energize, is to release old patterns, is to cleanse the emotional mind. But what is that spiritual goal? Is there any spiritual goal to this?
Yeah. Well, Leonard was very, that's actually kind of what Leonard liked to say about it, is that it is a spiritual experience. Even though there's the physiological benefit of bringing in a lot of oxygen, it alkalizes the body, it energizes the body, the circulation is better. We have all of those physiological benefits, but for him, it was primarily a spiritual experience. And he liked to say, let's not forget that we are human and divine. Mm-hmm. So we are divine humans and humans in a divine form. So basically, how is it that we can connect with our divinity? Sometimes we just feel our humanness and it's like too much. It's the personality and it's the real life and the gray every day. But how is it that we can bring the divine aspects, the divine experience? So how can we merge the two? And I think that is really a very important question to keep asking ourselves. How is the divine aspect of me doing? Am I being overwhelmed by the humanity of my experience? Yes. So we are spirits in human form, and sometimes the spirit part kind of doesn't get enough attention. So rebirthing as a breathing practice is not everything that he was talking about and everything that he was exploring. He explored a lot of things, and actually that's what I really honor about him, is that he was so curious and he was so bold and so radical and so courageous that he didn't care if the ideas that he was exploring were, socially acceptable, like physical immortality, or if he could achieve it, which he didn't in this lifetime. He just went for them, and the passion that he had continues to inspire me.
What do you think was his passion, actually, through this breath work? What have you perceived as being his companionship, his life partner, his wife for all these years? How did you perceive his quest for spirituality? That's first question. The second question, since you mentioned it, and I had it on my list here, I would like to know how did that duality combine in Orr, because you're the only one who could tell us more about it. How did that humanness and divine being combine in Leonard? Because you're the one who could tell us more about it.
Yeah, right. Yes, I definitely had a very close view of him. Yeah, it's a good question, actually. So in my opinion, his passion was to help people bring out more of their divine human potential.
For what purpose? Why?
In order to feel more alive, in order to feel more expanded. He would say that why would you even want to consider the idea of physical immortality if your quality of life isn't joyful enough? If you don't even feel like maybe being alive, it's, some people you mention, would you like to live, a couple hundred years? They say, no way. And so he recognized that. And so the reason why he was talking about the life urge and the death urge, one of his absolute passions was to what can we do in a practical manner every day to support our life urge and to consciously heal our death urge. Mm-hmm. So the life urge is everything that supports life, health, harmony, well-being, and a kind of a holistic sense of wholeness. And the death urge is, the pain body, or Eckhart Tolle actually uses that term, the pain body, and that's where I've learned it most. The dysfunction of the ego, dysfunctional parts of the ego, the conditioning, the pain of the conditioning, ancestral issues, the everyday stress and tension, and self-sabotage, difficult people, difficult experiences. So there's so much that can bring us down. How can we lift ourselves up? And then how can we help others to lift themselves up as well? So he talked a lot about support, spiritual community. And he said, and I really love this quote, and I really hope that you take this seriously for the listeners. He said, the best gift you can give another person is a high personal presence. And he was that high personal presence. And I'm sure you agree with that. So he was an example of that. And I'm so touched by that, because basically our inner work is our gift to another person. And I think it makes it so meaningful, because the quality of our energy is so much better if we continuously and in a dedicated manner continue to work, increasing our life urge and our joy of life and who we really are, and consciously releasing those negative patterns and the sabotage and self-sabotage and whatever's not helpful. And at the same time, it also means that we have to accept that is going on, the yin and the yang.
Yes.
Not to reject ourselves. We have to accept before we can change. So the other part of the question was Leonard's own spirituality and humanness. And let me tell you, he was very human. He wasn't perfect. And I think, it's so easy to idolize somebody like him, like any spiritual teacher. And it's sometimes people have the tendency to think that everything they do is right and everything they think is correct. But obviously that is not true. And his energy was incredibly expansive. His energy field was huge. And you could just tell that he was a very, very old soul and a very experienced spirit, in a sense that he had wisdom that I still don't know what exactly it was. I mean, he was an enigma as well. He was a mysterious being. And I think I only know parts of him, honestly.
What was it mysterious about him that you found mysterious?
I think it's mysterious the way he was working with energy. He was able to, when he was running a training, he was able to, like, his belly would expand because it's the social chakra around the navel. Let me give you an example. One time he was giving a lecture, and I was there, and so I was watching him. And so his belly started out like this when people started gathering to the lecture hall. And then as more of them gathered, the belly started to expand. And as he started the lecture, his belly started to expand even more. And it was literally in real time that his belly was getting bigger. And he wasn't eating, right? So it was energy. And he was processing the energy of the group. And that is mysterious.
So you mentioned there was some confusion about his living. His soul level, his mission was complete, but at the personality level, he wasn't ready. And can you please tell us, I know you've been there with him until the end. And for many of us watching now that knew Leonard or had the chance to meet him, could bring us some closure. We probably need to know certain things that only you know, that will give us some comfort and peace and enable us to connect with him even more, probably, hopefully.
Yes, I'm happy to do that. In fact, I feel like I kind of owe this to people, because I did have that very unique perspective of being next to him all this time. So what I would most like people to know is that he was at peace at the very end. And now the confusion may arise from the fact that even though he explored physical immortality, he didn't achieve it. And then the question is, well, why didn't he achieve it? I can only give you my personal view on that. I think that he explored it as far as he could explore it. The benefit for us is that he expanded our minds with the idea that we are not as limited as we think we are, and that the joy of life is really the catalyst for us to explore anything that expansive. So I think that he honestly wanted to just blow our mind with radical ideas like that. And he achieved that for many, many, many people. And I think that we have the moral obligation to continue to stay with a very expanded mind and an open mind. But he never prepared anybody for his leaving. And I think that's another mystery, is that he wanted everyone to figure it out for themselves. And it's almost like his final teaching. Well, how are you going to deal with this one, with this experience? But yes, I would like for people to know that his personality was extremely driven and very, very focused on his work. If it had been for the personality to be and stay in charge until the very end, it would have just kept going with scheduling lectures, scheduling trainings, accepting invitations. But at some point, about 2 years before he left the body, the soul, and I could see that happen in real time, the soul came in and his personality completely shifted into a very peaceful, content, slow, restful space. And he told me, he said, I feel like I have contributed a lot to the world. I've helped thousands and thousands of people heal. And I think I've done enough and I can relax now. As his wife, I am glad that he was able to take his time to enjoy just being. It's almost like he was doing for so many decades. And then at the end, there was this shift between the personality being in charge, and then the soul came in and said, you have given what you came here to give. This is the way I experience it. And some others as well who can see energies and have some psychic abilities, and they have agreed to this view, but it is subjective. And I think that there is that he had completed what he came here to do in this particular form. He had written a lot. He had touched enough people. He had trained enough people, and it's up to us now to continue. Yeah. And I got it very clearly as well that he would like to invite people to contact his consciousness. And he might be even more available now because he's not constrained by the limitations of space-time. And so if you never met him, I would say you could look at his photo, because you can just Google that, or you could look at his video. There are a number of them on YouTube, or you could read a text by him, or you could just connect to his consciousness. And every time I ask something or I say something, do you have an answer, or is there something you would like me to know? He always responds, and it has never happened to me that he hasn't responded. And I think that this is an opportunity for us to really hone our skills with these kinds of subtleties. Are we able to connect to a consciousness that's not physical? And maybe not in the beginning, but how could we work up to that if we're interested in that kind of thing? So I would like for people to know that he was at peace at the end, and that he got his well-deserved rest the last 2 years, and that I'm very glad that I was there as a loving presence, and that I wasn't fighting his process, and I'm very glad about that.
Yeah, thank you.
And I was respecting, because I recognized that the forces of the soul are so great and so powerful, and those forces are so great that there's nothing that the personality can do to fight those, and there's no point. So I just accepted and was there as a presence and did my best to manage the difficult process that I was going through.
Any last thoughts that he wanted to share with his big community What were his last words? What did he tell you about his work experience? Was he aware when he left? I don't know if I go too much into the intimacy of these last moments, if you feel at ease to answer these questions or not. If you're not, do not worry about it. But anything that could help us connect with these last moments, connect with him and with his last wishes, last thoughts, last messages that he would like to tell to others?
What I would like for people to know was that at the very end, he knew that death wasn't real. In fact, he laughed at the idea of death at the very last time that I had a conscious conversation with him. And he was very lighthearted, and he was at a level of consciousness where death didn't exist, so he had no fear. But I do know that, the interesting part was that when he was moving into what's called medically the active dying process, he stayed in the active dying process for 8 days, which means that he no longer was, I was no longer able to connect with him consciously. So he kept breathing for 8 days. And, that's pretty mysterious. And the people who have worked at settings like hospice and who have some nurse experience, they say that that's a very long time to keep breathing. Once the body has entered the active dying phase. So one of my friends said, this was Leonard's most epic rebirthing session of all. And so I would show up every single day and he was still breathing, like he just kept the breath going for 8 days before he released the body. And so I think that message, that just speaks for himself. I really believe that he wants his work to continue. I know for sure. I feel very driven to make sure that his original school stays alive and well, and we continue to train people. And the first thing for me to do is work with individual clients and collaborate with other rebirthers to offer workshops and seminars and trainings. So that is where I'm at on an everyday level. And I know for sure that he wants people to continue to engage with the practices, earth, air, water, and fire, so that we can continue to increase our life force and to start, to continue to kind of release those patterns that are not helping us.
Yes.
So I would say he wants the work to stay alive and to be alive, and he's confident that it will.
Yeah, and what would he care about now that he's no longer here from the breathwork perspective, apart from continuing the work? And you mentioned that he has this formula and that you feel that this formula can grow, can change.
So my perspective on it is that the formula that he had, earth, air, water, fire, and the mind, to use those to purify the energy and renew the energy to the point where you could keep the body going, I believe that the formula is not complete. Now, he didn't know whether it was complete or not. It was just as far as he could take it because he really explored each one very, very well. This is my opinion and the opinion of many of his students, that it is now up to us to take this formula and see what else can we add there. And you mentioned that Ayurveda could be part of it because of the herbal aspect of it. I think that, different meditation techniques, like some really esoteric Buddhist meditation techniques about regenerating the energy body could be very helpful. I mean, this is our playing field now. So I think that as a global consciousness, and there's so many people who were touched by Leonard's work and know of it, or have a book, or have an experience, we can all continue to explore all of this now.
Yes, absolutely. So basically, you're referring to the 5 elements, right? So we have the earth, the water, the fire, the air, and then we have the mind. Is that correct?
Yes.
Can you very briefly, because the time is flying so fast, but please give us an example of how we can use the 5 elements as a purification, right? As a purification practice on our daily life, so that we can allow this purity of being, so that we can be a better gift to people around us, and we can be a better contribution to others on this planet.
Yes, the earth is about the diet. It's about our work, to have very meaningful activity that we're engaging in. So the work is actually really an important part of it. It's also movement. It's also fasting to cleanse the body.
Okay.
And so it's, the basics obviously is to make sure you have enough exercise and to have a really clean diet. Mm-hmm. And then I think you also had something to mention about that.
Yes, well, I was mentioning to you that I'm preparing an Ayurveda online course where I go through the philosophical part, and I'm going into identifying your dosha, explaining the doshas, explaining how your mind works, and then what type of food is good for you, what you should avoid, what type of exercises, self-massages. So basically taking care of your whole body from an Ayurvedic perspective. So I'm working on it now. But if you want, of course, I can share with you some of the tricks, and we can bring a little contribution to your formula. I'd be more than happy to do that.
Oh, that would be exceptional. That would be wonderful. I mean, you're an expert. So exactly, that's what we want to be open to. We want to be open to all those different disciplines working together in harmony.
Working together, yeah, because from my perspective, the earth element, the way you purify it is by the diet. But you have to know, of course, it's not just vegetarian and bio, and of course, the most pure, freshly picked and freshly cooked that is good for you. But it also has to be adapted to your constitution. If it's not the right food for you, even if it's bio, even if it's freshly cooked, it's not going to do good for you. So I think from my point of view, working with your earth element is taking care of this and looking at the food and knowing what type of food is good for this, your own unique part of matter. But I don't want to talk too much because, you asked me a question, I'll talk for hours, and I don't want to take too much of your time. So let's move into the water element, because this is the fascinating part, because it all started with a bath, right? So how can we use smartly the water so that we can purify ourselves?
Yes, so I think actually earth and water element are the most integrated already into people's lives. They just may not know that.
Yes.
So before we met for this interview, I took a full immersion bath in just right there. I have a beautiful bathtub that I'm able to use. And so I take a bath every single day. It's full immersion. And Leonard did that too. He took a bath twice a day. And so and most people take showers, and sometimes it's in order to save time. But I would say if you have a bathtub at home, the beautiful thing about the bathtub is that when you're completely inside the water, your chakras, which are your energy centers, and we're talking about purification of the energy field, which then leads to the purification of the other systems, emotional, mental, psychological. So your chakras are turning through the water, and the water is the ultimate dissolvent, and it's the ultimate purifier, one of the ultimate purifiers. And so, of course, if you think about it this way, you would get the benefit the most if you're actually inside the water. And I just find it so pleasurable. I'm a Pisces, from the astrological perspective. So I like.
So am I.
Oh, okay. So I love the bath. I so love the bath. I put Epsom salt in it, and I read books in.
How long should one stay in the bathtub to feel these benefits, or it depends, or we're not
sure.
Playing?
To give you a real life story, sometimes when Leonard and I were traveling, and say we had to leave at 4 a.m. to get to the airport, and we had an early flight, we would get up at 2 a.m. just to run a bath, and he would get to the bath first, and then I would wake up like at 2:45 and run my bath, and so we were so dedicated, because it's almost like, when a baby is born too early, they put them in the incubator to kind of catch up on their development. Mm-hmm. That's how a bath feels. I didn't get enough sleep. Now I'm getting into the bathtub. Even if it's 15 minutes, I feel better. I just feel so clear, because when we wake up, now this is what I want to tell you. When you wake up in the morning, in your field, you have all of the material that you have processed over the course of the night. It is hanging out in your psychic field, in your energy field, and it's sort of like, it hasn't been cleared out yet. And so I don't want to take all this material into my day. I want to purify this. I'm going to clear it out. So that, and you can feel that sometimes, like there's a little confusion, and you're kind of feel a little bit like you're not clear. And so what people can do is they can, I would say 15 minutes at least. I like to stay up to an hour because I like to get my reading time. I read in the bathtub. But I'd say experiment as long as it's enjoyable. 20 minutes is good, and a comfortable warm bath. And of course, you can do showers as well. Almost everybody that, if you ask them, do you feel better after a shower? They say yes. They just may not know why.
I see. But if you also do it with awareness and with that intention, if you do it consciously, taking a shower with the purpose of purification, I guess it works even more, right?
Definitely. Yes. You can invoke. Yeah, you can just intentionally say, may this water wash away anything that doesn't serve me. May this water purify my energy body, my emotional body, my psychological body. May I enter into my day fresh and clear and energized. And so, yes, it definitely helps. So we're bringing in the mind in a very conscious way into another element, which is the water.
I see. How about the fire element? Because this is the most important part. Before you answer, just to share with my viewers here, I told you I spent 5 days in Virginia, and I had to sit with the fire and keep the fire going for 5 days. So I was sleeping in front of the fireplace, and then I would have to take a little bit of fire and make a fire outside during the day and sit by the fire, not talking to anybody, just taking the bath, of course, in the morning and at night. So this experience with the fire was very, very interesting for me, because you kind of develop a relationship with it. You kind of start communicating with it, and you feel it from within. And sometimes you feel that when it goes lower inside, it goes lower outside, and vice versa. And so it was a very, very spiritual experience for me. And since then, I'm able to make a fire because I couldn't before. To me, fire purification was one of the most powerful tools, especially when my heart chakra is blocked. I make a fire in the fireplace and I sit in front of it, and then something happens. Very subtle movement, very subtle change, where something opens up, something becomes lighter, and then you just feel better. So this is what I wanted to share before you saying, sorry if I talk too much, but this is the part that I love the most, the fire.
Yeah, I'm so glad to hear that, because, Leonard was always kind of concerned that fire was the least understood of the elements, because obviously the air is the breath, and that's what we practice. That's what the name of the work is. And water, again, we take showers and we eat every day. So those seem to be more incorporated into the lifestyles. But he was concerned that people wouldn't quite get the fire. And so he wrote a whole book about it, actually, which is called Fire. And he really wanted people to just put themselves into the experience so that it would teach them the direct experience. And he called fire his lover. So he definitely talked about developing a relationship with the fire. And what's true about all of the elements is that these are conscious, living entities. They're especially the fire, especially because it's so warm and it moves around, and it looks very alive.
The transformative force. In Ayurveda, this force is called Agni.
Yes.
And in the Vedic texts, we talk about various layers and functions of Agni. Agni, or the fire, exists at all levels of being. Now that I've learned so much from Ayurveda, going back to the experience I had back then, I understand much more about the role of the fire in one's experience. Absolutely.
So when there's a lot of heaviness, or let's say grief, or the death urge, or the manifestations of the unconscious death urge, or any kind of really dense, heavy emotions, fire is the best element to work with that. Because really, it's also very easy, because, that's what Leonard loved about the elements, is that all you have to do, the mind is a little bit more interactive, but all you have to do is sit, like lie in the bathtub, and the water does the work. And all you have to do is sit in front of the fire. You don't even have to like you don't have to try very hard for the fire to help you.
Absolutely.
You basically, you can listen to something, you can read a book, you can just meditate, you can even take a nap. I mean, Leonard slept. He almost like lived by his fireplace, pretty much. I mean, that's might be interesting for people because his bed literally was in front of the fireplace of our house. And then he had his little computer desk there too, and he would eat by the fireplace. So he pretty much existed in the house by the fire. And so he took fire very, very seriously. And it's a great purifier, and especially if you have heavy emotions. So those of you who have the luxury and the luck to have an actual fireplace in your home, it makes it very easy for you, because all you have to do is build a fire there, and you can kind of build it into your lifestyle. And it's amazing how little people use their fireplaces, which is really sad, but it's because they don't know that it can be helpful. Another way, if you live in an apartment or you don't have a fireplace, is to indoors, what you can do. Leonard would suggest this candle meditation to take 12 candles, and you have to be sure that you meet the fire safety requirements, that it's on a safe surface, that you don't leave the fire just there. So that's important. Disclaimer. But so how you do the candle meditation is you take the 12 candles, you light one, and you meditate on what it does for you and for the energy body. And then you light the second one. And so what you want is to keep it close enough to you so that it is touching your energy field, even though obviously our fields are quite big, but the closer it is in some ways, the better. And then you light the other one. And so you just keep lighting them and noticing if you feel a shift, you feel like a significant change, and that would be the number of candles for you.
I see.
And so you could, as long as you keep it safe, you could sleep with these candles next to you, and therefore get the benefit of an overnight. Or you could just have them by your desk when you're working, and just so you are still receiving the benefit, but it's really the flame that does the work. So if you're able to build a fire outside, Leonard actually, he would do fire outside all the time. We had a large property, and he had many, many places where he could do fire.
Yes.
And so the reason why it's so good is because the fire is not contained by the fireplace. It's just open. And so it's an open space. It's your field, your body, and then the fire. And then you may have to move around so you don't inhale smoke too much. So that can be the more difficult part. But then you also enjoy the fresh air and the plants, and you get more elements actually in.
Yes. All right. So after that, we have the air, which brings us to the breathing, right? We don't have too much time left, but we can talk a little bit about how to use the breath, how we use the air element actually to purify our own body and mind. And then maybe we can do the exercise. And if you have time, maybe we can meet a second time. I feel we're just starting, I mean, we have so much, I have so much more questions to ask you, and but unfortunately the time is running out for now. So let's talk about the breathing. The breathing you mentioned, we can do it in the bathtub. We can also do it just like that, laying down and having somebody doing it for us. I'm going to add the link to your website so people can contact you if they need to do that, if they want to do that. You also organize workshops and trainings, right?
Yes. Yeah. So all of that is in development, but we will be having a monthly seminar over Zoom for at least a year is what we've planned.
Okay.
It's about 3 hours. And so there's going to be a seminar that's connected to rebirthing. It's part of a training, some of the rebirthers that we started to train in September. So it's kind of a continuing education course for them, but we allow new people to join. For sure. So it's a great way to stay connected to the rebirthing community.
So perfect. That's great. So we can do that breathing that you promised me that we would do, right? It's an exercise we can do at home safely with no problem.
Yeah, so I would say that the long session, which people come to me and come to other rebirthers for as a practice and as a therapy. I would say that it kind of in the beginning it definitely requires some guidance. So I wouldn't recommend that people just do a whole hour of conscious breathing by themselves. I mean, they could, but I would say it's much better if they have support, because it is so powerful. Yet it's gentle, but it can be very powerful, and you just kind of want to have a safe container and somebody there with you. But what's very safe to do is breathing exercises. And so before I go into that, I would just like to say that something that I do every day and something that is very much could be a daily practice is just to notice how you're breathing in the moment. Are you holding your breath when you're stressed? And are you breathing in a superficial way, which happens when we feel tension? So over the course of the day, just make it a practice to try to notice as much as you can, as often as you can, how are you breathing in the moment? That is basically breath awareness. It's the most basic breath awareness, being aware of your breath. And sometimes, for example, when I go outside and I walk the dog, I very consciously, as soon as I step outside, I start breathing more fully and freely. So the whole goal of rebirthing on a physiological level is to breathe more fully and freely. And also when our emotional body is more free and clear, our breath is much more free and clear. So it all works together. It all reflects all the other levels. So that is actually my very first suggestion. Just be aware of how you are breathing in the moment and see how you can just make it fuller and freer and not stay in a very superficial breath or actually like hold your breath. And then, so I would like to introduce the 20 connected breaths. There's actually on the website, rebirthingbreathwork.com, which I'm sure you will link below. There is a short clip of Leonard doing that exercise. And so I think that might be really cool for people to watch that, actually, hear him breathe. It's a 30-second exercise. The beautiful thing about it is that you cannot say you don't have the time. Because if you don't have 30 seconds, you don't have a life. So it is called the 20 connected breaths. Mm-hmm. What we do is 4 short breaths and 1 long. And that's 4 sets of these 5 breaths. And the purpose of the 4 short breaths is to really connect the inhale to the exhale and that exhale to the inhale in a very circular manner without pauses, because this is how we pull in the prana, the divine energy. This is what moves us into that deep relaxation and that altered state that then allows us to access all the different levels and for the material to surface, for the release and for the purification to happen and the deep insights to happen. So and then the purpose of the 5th breath, the really long breath, is to literally expand the breathing mechanism that may have contracted because of the everyday stress and tension or trauma and all the difficulties that we all have in life. So keep that in mind. And so would you like me to demonstrate?
Yes, please demonstrate, or you want to teach me how to do it?
Yes. So how about I first teach or demonstrate the first 5 breaths, okay, which is the 4 short breaths, connected breaths, and 1 long. And I'll just demonstrate those 5, and then after that, we can do the whole thing together. Okay. So you want to breathe into your belly, but also the chest should be free, so probably both of them move. The reason why you want to breathe into your belly is to activate your parasympathetic nervous system, which is about rest, digest, and restore. And, usually when we're stressed, we're in the sympathetic, and that's not so good for us. So we always want to do what we can to activate the parasympathetic. Okay, so here I go. Did you hear me?
Yeah, a little.
I don't know if you could hear the breaths through the video, but anyway, I did 4 shorter breaths and 1 long. So with the one long breath, you take as big a breath as you can for as long as you can, and then you just let go at the exhale. And
so the first 4, the short breaths are normal breaths, or they're short?
Probably a little shorter. Because you're doing them consciously, and you pull in more air so you can actually hear yourself breathe. Because usually we don't hear the other person breathe, but so you're pulling in more air and you're pulling in more prana.
Okay, so let me try to do this first 5, and you tell me.
Okay, let's see how you do. And now take a long one. And just let go.
I exhale right away, or I hold a little bit after the long breath in?
Well, I would say how I do it is that I take as long a breath as I can, and I just keep stretching it and stretching it and stretching it. And then I release. So I don't really hold. I just keep stretching it. So you may not hear me as I'm stretching it, but I just want to make it as long as I can, because that's how I'm opening up my breathing mechanism and really allowing my breathing to then naturally become fuller and freer in the everyday. Because every time you use this exercise, it retrains your breathing mechanism to breathe better. So that's why it's a good idea, and it takes such a short amount of time. Leonard would say peace and energy is an unbeatable combination.
Yes.
And some people feel more energized, some people feel more peaceful, but often they feel both after this exercise. What I can do is, as I breathe in and out, I can just do this with my fingers for people to see where I'm at with my breaths.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do the 20 together. Okay.
All right. Wow.
How do you feel?
Let me find the words first. It's not spaced out because I'm very anchored in the body, but it's like peace of mind. It's like my mind is empty. Yes.
30 seconds.
Here, and there's a sense of peace.
Okay. Peace and energy. So the energy part, so I feel, okay, let me tell you what I feel. I feel more harmonious. I feel a little elated.
Yes.
I feel more vibration in my energy field, like I'm more alive. So that's the peace and energy. And I do feel like, oh, life is good, you know. I feel relaxed. I feel slightly, it's almost like, you see, the 30 seconds almost slightly takes me into an altered state. Isn't that amazing? Yes. So imagine if you do it for an hour, what can happen? Just the potential of that.
Yes.
And so, and this is very, very safe. So you won't be going into a massive healing process where you would need support and a facilitator if you do the 30 seconds. It gives you a boost. It clarifies your mind. It it relaxes you. You can feel a bit elated, and it's like a pick-me-up in the afternoon.
When you have a negative state and you don't feel all right, and you feel nervous, agitated, stressed, depressed, down, or sad, if you do that, you could actually start feeling a little bit better. Is that it?
Definitely. Yeah, it shifts your perspective because you expand. You expand energetically, and you also expand psychologically and in the mind. Yeah. So I'm so glad we were able to give this tool to people.
Yeah, me too.
And I very much encourage you all viewers, listeners, to take advantage of that and to really use it for your benefit. And the only way you can find out what it can do for you is if you try it out, and you just you can put it in your little calendar to do it before you brush your teeth or after you eat lunch or whatever.
Yeah.
It's and Leonard would also say, make the practices easy enough so you actually do them, because a theoretical practice, is kind of worthless. And whatever you do, even if it's less than you would like, it's better than nothing.
Absolutely. Elvi, would you like to meet again? Let's do a second.
Absolutely, yes. So let's sign me up.
We haven't talked about like the death urge. I'd like to talk more about working with your mind and the affirmations. I was going to show you my written affirmations, but I'll keep it for next time. It'll be the surprise. I would like to talk about this subtle work, because this is very important. I would like to talk about how we can connect with Leonard's consciousness, and maybe we can do actually a little practice together to attempt to do that, and everybody watching can do that with us. And I would like to ask some more personal questions, because that was the purpose. I wanted to explore you. We talked about Leonard, and it's good because we have to honor his presence in this world, and his passion and his legacy. Of course, it was important that we did that, but I would like to explore you beyond Leonard. Who is Elvi Orr, and what do you feel? What do you do when things don't go well? And how do you get to that level of purity beyond these tools? Because there must be something else, which is you beyond those tools. And I would like to explore that, this beautiful mind of yours. So, of course, there's plenty of things that we can do. So we'll talk after we finish this recording and we decide for another meeting. But would you have a last thought for people watching now, a piece of advice, considering what's going on in the world today, all these changes, the fear, the anxiety, apart from the 20 connected breathings? Any last word of wisdom from you or from Leonard?
Yes. Okay. Two pieces of advice from me. One is everything is temporary. So whatever challenges you have at the moment, they will pass. If it's a particularly difficult time for you, it will get better. It will get easier. Don't give up on yourself ever. You are a divine human being. You deserve to be supported, which leads me to the second part of it. Make sure you have enough support. Most people that I come to contact with in trainings or through the individual sessions, they actually, they recognize when we talk about their support system, they don't actually have enough support. And I think that we were not told that it's okay to have a really solid support system all of the time, not just when we are not doing well. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with us when we have a solid support system. And by that, I mean, do you have a therapy that you are engaged in that really helps you? Do you have a group that you're connected to so you feel like you belong somewhere? And, right now, much of it is done online, but I would say if you feel you need more support, you probably do. And we were designed to live in tribes and to be around each other a lot, and to look into the other person's eyes and feel the validation of just the look of that. And if we don't have that, we don't thrive. And I would say, don't stay isolated. That is my main message. Make sure you have support. Don't stay isolated. Reach out, even if it feels risky. You deserve to feel connected and to connect and to receive and give, just like you are designed to do.
Everything is temporary, and this too shall pass, right? And stay connected with others. And this is one of the most powerful ways to stay strong during times like this. By ourselves, we do not really mean much. We exist only through the interactions that we have with others. Like, make everyone disappear from the planet and you lose the meaning of your own existence. And probably this is why God created this world, right? From one became many to come out of this feeling of loneliness. So reach out to others, join groups, create your own group, have a discipline, and these too shall pass. And let's stay curious about where all this will bring us. Thank you so much, Elvi. Thank you so much, Leonard, from wherever you are now. Thank you all for watching. You might want to visit Elvi's website and check out the workshops and the trainings that she's now offering via Zoom. Don't hesitate to contact her. Write her an email via the website or directly on Facebook using the links below. Please like, share, and subscribe. And of course, if you have something to say and want to have a conversation here with me and spread your message to the world, clarify what's important to you and introduce yourself to the world, contact me and let's talk. And I'll see you all very soon.